Hi there. Welcome to the Christian Humanist. I'm Damien. So the topic for today is the problem with the Bishop Barron, as to why Catholics, specifically Catholic men, should stop following this guy or listening to him. Now, first of all, Bishop Barron is a popular Catholic speaker. He's one could say, a leading voice in the Catholic online space. He has a large following. People take him seriously. He gives a lot of speeches, and people sort of use him as a focal point when it comes to articulating Catholic views and doctrines. The idea that Catholicism should be relevant, or ought to engage the modern world, ought to be relatable to modern sensibilities, ought to be accessible, particularly Catholic teachings and dogmas and so on. And Bishop Barron is like this go-to person, that he's the one who is we should look up to. Now, I understand all of that because admittedly he has built up a large and significant following. Now, the problem is this, the problem with Bishop Barron's ministry, specifically as it pertains to Catholic men, and this is something I noticed a few years back, which is a recurring theme, there is a recurring motive, a message that's sort of built into everything he says, whatever that Bishop Barron puts forward, the evangelization, the messages, the teachings, the way he articulates the word, all the sermons, etc. that he's put forward, this seems to be the crutch, the underlying message, and one that I would argue is not only problematic, but it is in a sense anti-masculine, anti-male, and in a paradoxical sense, it is actually anti-Christian. Now, to be clear, this is not an attack on Bishop Barron personally. I'm not here to say that Bishop Barron is a bad person. I'm not saying that he is misguided. I'm not saying that he is trying to mislead people purposefully, although I do think the misleading aspect comes forth necessarily because he is either ill-informed or misinformed, or he's ignorant, or he doesn't want to be enlightened to a deeper understanding of the truth. Now that's a big statement because Bishop Barron is after all a bishop and I'm not one. There is a question of authority here, but the deeper issue here is this: is he saying the right thing? Is he saying good things? Is he giving out the right kind of message to people, especially for men? So let's get into it. First of all, the first problem with Bishop Barron's message is that he is essentially operating from an anti-materialistic worldview. What it means essentially is that he thinks, or he argues, that any attachment to material things, your house, your car, your bank balance, anything that pertains to your goods and services that you control or that you command, or critically that you seek or pursue, understand the difference here, there are things that you have and there are things that you want. The things that you have and things that you want are not always the same because you cannot get everything that you want in life, and not everything that you get you can fully enjoy or safeguard or preserve. There's always some kind of mismatch, conflict, errors, etc. involved. So the question is, the idea that material detachment, the idea of giving things away, that's his expression that he uses, is problematic at a deeper level, critically as it pertains to men who want to build something, who want to aspire, who want to achieve and attain things in this world. So the idea that you should give up, and therein lies the joy or the promise, the fulfillment. So that is something that's quite problematic because the idea is this: if you give things up, if you give up not critically not what you have, but the urges, the desires, the aspirations, you're giving up your dreams essentially, is that a good thing? As a man, critically, because let's face it, folks, to succeed in this world, you need to fulfill your potential. I'll circle back to this point at the end, but this is the first issue. Bishop Barron's ministry is anti-materialistic at its core, that's the first one. Secondly, Bishop Barron, if you listen to his teachings he always speaks of God externally to the human condition. The classic case would be people who are, depressed, lonely, people who are having, ideations of, doing that, regarding their own lives. The idea that people who are unhappy, particularly the younger generation, people who are, feeling lost, lacking direction and so on. And the argument is that, these things stem from within, these urges to be fulfilled. Because understand this, the negativity that people are feeling, loneliness, detachment, feeling disempowered, etc. Those emotions are felt, or those states of mind become dominant because we aren't getting something we want, invariably, whether it's financial security, obviously, whether it's relational joy and comfort, whether it's fulfillment in your work, which is not just a monetary thing, because people can make a lot of money, but they may not be fulfilled, It could be a lack of opportunities to socialize. It could be a lack of opportunities to assert yourself, to have a name, to be recognized, to be respected, These things matter, and not having those things, not having those factors and forces in place drives people into all kinds of things. Now, the reason this becomes an issue with Bishop Barron is that what he does is that he posits these problems, these issues as negatives, rightly so, because being depressed, being anxious all the time, being lonely is not a good thing. But then he says, oh, look, but these things are happening. These things stem from within. They happen because you are not fulfilled. It's because you are pursuing the wrong things, okay? You're attached to your considerations, your joys, your idea of pleasure and satisfaction and fulfillment, okay? Hence, it is only right that you give it up, okay? You forego it for the sake of God, the kingdom, for transcendental considerations, okay? And the idea is that by doing so, that's to give up your urges, your desires, your aspirations, your dreams, okay? It goes back to the point about money. You will somehow, attain some kind of equilibrium where you're okay with things, okay? Because you're giving everything up. It's all in God's hands, okay? The problem is this, okay? If that is the case, that wanting things, wanting to be fulfilled, wanting to fulfill our urges and desires, it's an internal thing that comes from within, but that is somehow detached from God's plan and God's vision and mission for our lives, okay? And that God's mission, okay, think of this, right, is somehow in giving up. The only way to serve God is to let go, is to forego, okay, is to negate all urges and desires, to live a anti-materialistic, anti-sensual, non-sensual life, okay, not being fulfilled, not being satisfied, and more critically, not even having the urges in the first place, okay, because you got to get that out of the equation as well, that we're somehow doing God's will. Okay, are you guys with me here? So the idea of doing God's will, okay, this is a critical point, to serve God, to follow God, to be faithful to God. Okay, this is the language the clerical class uses, okay? In practice entails necessarily giving things up, letting go. And the critical point is this, guys. People don't have things. That's why they pursue them. If they have everything in the first place, then it would not be a factor. The whole idea that money doesn't buy you happiness is problematic from the very start, because the people who are saying it, okay, are either not rich, they don't want to be rich, or more critically, they don't need to work for it. Okay, someone else is doing the hard yards. Okay, things are being given to them. Hence, they can say, "Hey, by the way, don't worry about money. God will provide." Okay, but who is saying that? Okay, it's the clerical class usually, or people who are reliant on the enterprise of other people. Okay, so this circles back to the issue about doing God's will, or that God's will is external to our goals, our needs, our ambitions. Okay, that is a problem. If you posit God as external to the human condition, this is the key point here. Okay, that means what you and I want for our own lives. Okay, wanting to have a nice house, wanting to have a nice holiday, wanting to dress well. Okay, just the other day I watched this guy in a movie driving a BMW i-Series, which is an amazing car, man. Wanting to have that. It's indulgent, I guess. It's not necessary, but what's wrong in wanting it? Okay, what's wrong in seeking it? Okay, but according to Bishop Barron, it's a problem. Don't want it. Don't seek happiness in material things, in sensual things, in relational things. Okay, in aspirational things, in honor or power, as he says, which I will not get into here. But then seek God in giving things up. So seeking God, following God, serving God is to negate all these things. What does that mean? It means God does not care about what you want. His views, his goals, his aspirations, his plan, okay, is antithetical to yours, okay, which means God is not on your side, okay, which means if you try to work, okay, towards money, fulfillment, relational satisfaction, pleasure means sex, okay, sex and romance, okay, that's what it means basically. Having those things are necessarily problematic because that is not part of God's plan, okay, can you guys see what's wrong here, okay? Why is it not part of God's plan? Because that's what we want. If you and I feel something, if you and I have the urge to have something, to do something, again, by the way, guys, making money is not easy. It requires skill, it requires application, it requires determination, it requires ingenuity, it requires creativity, okay? You guys are looking here, especially those of us who have, worked in the business arena. It's different, I guess, for people who are, working for charities and reliant on other people's generosity, okay? It's not an easy thing. Ask anyone who's built a business. Ask anyone who's succeeded. Look at top athletes. You read about this guy, Tom Brady. Look at his life, man. How he became such a great athlete. Michael Phelps. It's not these guys dedicate their entire life, okay, their working lives to being as good as they are. Okay, that does not come easy. So the honor and recognition and all the accolades that they receive at the end, that's a result of years and years of work, application, but critically the inner drive to succeed. Okay. What Bishop Barron is saying is that if you have any of those urges, those desires to do well, to succeed, let it go, because it's bad, because it goes against God's plan. Okay, how is it acceptable? How is it right? Okay, I want to have something. Okay, if I want to achieve and attain certain things, okay, how can that be antithetical to God's plan? It is antithetical because why? Because look at the example of Jesus Christ. Jesus is a good example of how to serve God, how to please God. And this takes us to the third issue, which is sort of the crux of this problem, okay, with Bishop Barron, and why Catholics and frankly anyone should stop listening to him, okay, is because he conceptualizes God within a purely Christological framework, okay? And what I mean by that is, see, in Christianity, God is not just Jesus. God is not someone who lived 2,000 years ago, came, died, did his mission, and went back to heaven. But that alone is not God, okay? Who is God in Christianity? Who? God is Father, Son, and Spirit. Okay, so the problem is when you reduce Christianity to Jesus Christ, to someone who lived 2,000 years ago, to make this about him, okay, everything that he did or everything that he did not do, okay, not getting rich, not becoming powerful, not achieving and attaining anything in life, not having any women. Christ was celibate, single, apparently the entirety of his life. We never went to war, never conquered, never aspired, lived like a normal wandering mystic, right? Preacher. And of course, he went through the passion, and that's the mystical dimension. But the point is, guys, if you look at it, okay, Jesus as an example, Jesus as God incarnate, okay, in a human sense, is very, very mediocre, okay? And that's a very serious point I'm making here. In a human sense, but his metaphysical dimension, what he achieves as God, that is something, that is something else. So the problem with Bishop Barron is that he's reducing God, okay, the creator of the whole universe, to this very particular image or example of God's human manifestation, okay, in Judea 2,000 years ago. Okay, we cannot reduce God to that. Okay, so whenever you have people trying to justify, okay, living a life which is not materialistic, non-sensual, no relationships, no power, no honor, no status, but be stripped of everything, okay, become like Christ, be this hanging naked corpse on a cross, which is what it is, unfortunately. That cannot be right. That isn't right. Because the death of Christ is not the end game, okay? The end game is his resurrection, so that's a different story. But what I'm getting at here, listeners, is that Bishop Barron is justifying and entrenching this anti-materialistic and ultimately anti-humanistic worldview, and then using that to justify this wall-rejecting theology, okay? Essentially anti-man dogma, okay? Right? And kind of like feminism, really, for men. Okay, in feminism, right, what it means is that women don't need men. Women don't have to rely on men. Women don't, should not trust men. Because why? Because the government will take care of them. Because feminism fundamentally is not about women, relying on each other. That's true, yes, but it's political outworking. It's social manifestation. It's the state takes the place of men in their lives. So the state will take care of women. It will provide security. It will provide for their welfare needs. It will enact laws on their behalf, okay? So that men will have to pay for them via alimony and so on, with men not getting anything in return, okay? Catholicism, essentially, the way that Bishop Barron is articulating, it's a bit like that. It's like, instead of the state, you have God is going to take care of you. God is going to provide for you. God is going to do everything. So you don't have to do anything yourself. Obviously, as men, we cannot rely on women to take care of us, okay? The way the relational dynamics work, men have to provide for themselves. We have to be independent. That's how it is. That's the way of life, okay? Girls can get away with it because they can use their beauty and their femininity and their sexuality to get ahead. We men cannot. We have to make it in life. We have to earn. We have to succeed. We have to become rich. As Andrew Tate says, I don't agree with that necessarily. Success can be defined in different ways, but we need a modicum of stability, and that entails financial security. That entails relational fulfillment, and that entails social recognition. Okay, those things matter. Those things are necessary, because without that, you're nobody. Okay, and the church or the state or God, whatever that's supposed to mean, is not going to solve that. And this takes to the deeper issue when it comes to the question about God. Okay, who is God here? What do we mean by God? Who is this God that Bishop Barron is talking? Depression, the worries, the fears, all these negatives are happening because we are so earth-centered. We're so centered on these things. We're so centered on money and our immediate material concentrations, our professional careers, our aspirations. The question is this: what happens if I don't think about those things? What happens if I stop considering those things? What happens if I don't pay attention to those aspects of my life? What happens? Okay, is God gonna solve those problems for me? Is God gonna take everything away? Oh, in a way, actually, He does. He's gonna take away. He's going to take away your urges, your desires, your aspirations, your drive, and you're left with absolutely nothing. Okay, become this total zero who doesn't want anything in life, and then you're totally in line with God. Okay, you're this pure mediocrity, and that is what God wants. How does that compute? How does it work out? It may work out for someone like Bishop Barron, who's a celibate priest who has nothing going on for him, understandably so. But it's not going to work out for you. It's not going to work out for you and me, and that is something for us to consider. Okay, this issue, guys, be very clear about this. Okay, what Bishop Barron is doing is he's conceptualizing God purely in a Christ-centric framework. Okay, God is not just Jesus. Okay, and God is not just Jesus 2,000 years ago. Okay, you guys think Jesus now is not on the cross. He's not living like some hermit, in Judea. He's, ascended in heaven. He's not even with us anymore. Okay, so people talking about Jesus, it doesn't make any sense. The deeper issue is this: your problems require practical solutions, real solutions. Relying on God, okay, unlike the feminists who actually have the state, a real entity, okay, a real construct, a leviathan to rely on to provide solutions because they can wield power politically via the electoral process, okay? We men we cannot rely on God in a systematic way so that God will do anything for us. It's not going to happen because we don't know how God works, guys. We don't know how God operates, okay? And it's clear, I think, from Bishop Barron's message, okay? When he talks about God, he always talks about negation, rejection, sacrifice. So ultimately, the only way to please God and to gain God's blessing is to not have anything, to not have any urges, not have any desires, not have any wants. Hence, you are able to give up everything, okay? Isn't that what it means? Because understand is that if you give up everything and you still want it, that's not right, is it? Okay, if you want it, then you need to have it. So what Bishop Barron is trying to do with his message of his type of evangelization is to destroy what you hold as valuable and significant. Okay, so anything from wanting to have a nice degree, wanting to have a degree in economics, wanting to go to medical school, wanting to have a nice family, wanting to move to a great city like, I don't know, Miami or New York, or to get a job at NASA, okay, or to, I don't know, become a professional athlete. Or this is something people have, by the way, they want to go to a fancy exotic country and date beautiful women in a different part of the world. What's wrong with that? Okay, what's wrong with wanting to lead a fulfilling life? If you're not able to do it, this is the key point here, okay, and you have to rely on God, and God doesn't want you to do it, that means that conception of God needs to be reworked. This is what I mean by God, by the way, right? We mean a deeper principle, a deeper yearning, okay, a deeper power within us, okay? If you and I want something, okay, if you and I want something that's good, that's aspirational, we're not here to destroy other people, okay, but we want to move forward and to achieve and attain things. That is a divine power, operative, a divine principle within us, okay? So if an engineer wants to build a better car, an architect wants to make a better house, or a designer wants to make a better system, okay? Those are the divine imperatives pushing us forward from within. Thus, be worthy of reward financially, materially, relationally, sensually, okay? And let's be honest, guys, okay? If you're a guy, if you're successful in the financial sense, the female question tends to sort itself out more often than not, okay? These things are interconnected, okay? And Bishop Barron, because he's a celibate priest, because he affirms a world-rejecting, life-rejecting ideology, which is what Catholicism has devolved into, it seems to me, it is only logical that he would espouse his message. But that message is wrong. It is anti-humanistic, and critically, it's anti-male, okay? God, whatever, it's not going to do anything for you. You got to do it for yourself, and God works through you. That, I would contend, is the way forward, okay? So the Bishop Barron Catholic hierarchical message, which, by the way, I think is reserved for the clerical class, okay? These people don't do anything, okay? They rely on our productivity. We have to pay their bills via our charity, okay? So they can come and tell us that we shouldn't work, that we shouldn't aspire for anything. How exactly is that right? How is that fair? How is that justified? Okay, it's not. So guys, men specifically, if you want a role model, okay, to do, spiritually, okay, don't look at Bishop Barron. Okay, there are other thinkers, maybe not Catholic thinkers necessarily, because Catholicism, I would say, is good ritualistically, provides the sacraments. Theologically, I would say it's kind of weak. I think the Protestants have it better out, certainly the continental philosophy. But that's a topic for another time. Bishop Barron, guys, this is the closing message, is anti-humanistic, is anti-masculine, is anti-male, because he's propounding a world-rejecting, life-rejecting, okay, man-rejecting message. Because without money, power, honor, and pleasure, i.e. sex or women, okay, you are nothing, okay? If God blesses you, if he's blessing you, or if you are being blessed by your actions, okay, God is the operative force within your life, and you're able to do great things. These are the reward. Money is a reward of productivity and good work. Power comes from achievement and attainment and application and pursuit of higher goals. Honor is to be recognized and respected by your peers, even your enemies, okay? And yeah, sex is, self-explanatory. I think I said enough on that. Point is, guys, okay, these are good things. Seeking them is not bad. The question is how does it align with God's plan? It aligns when you're doing good things, when the outcome is positive, when the outcome is beneficial to society, okay? Think about it, final point, okay? Why is it the people who are most successful, okay, materially, financially, also good when it comes to recognition and respect? Because they're doing something good to society, okay? Are you guys with me here, okay? If you're Elon Musk, as a classic example, okay, he's rich, he's powerful, he's good with the ladies, he has a lot of kids, he has a lot of women, and he's doing a lot of good things. Who can blame him? Who can judge him? Okay, he's doing something significant, okay? And that cannot be taken away. And it's true for all of us. We as men aspire for greater things. Good. Wanting it is not the problem. It's how we go about doing it. And God, or the divine deeper principle, the divine imperative, has to be recognized and aligned with our goals. So God works with us, through us, and in us. Okay, I guess here a final example. Okay, one guy I work with. Okay, he's a business guy, right? And he made this tweet, very interesting one. He said, he was an atheist as a young person. Now he's in his mid-20s, and he was saying, like, now I'm a person of faith, and for me, God is a partner. These are his words. Okay. In an post basically, he was saying how when he's in trouble, he doesn't know how to fix a problem, he doesn't know how to pass an obstacle, he prays, and he prays critically. Not that the problem should go away, but how can he find an answer? How can he fix that problem? Okay, where does the insight come from to look at it and say, okay, look, this is the issue, I'm going to find a different way around it or through it to address it, okay, and to be rewarded by the solution. Okay, and that's how he looks at life. It's a very novel approach, it seems to me. Okay, instead of that we pray to God asking for solutions, we say, look, let me think. Okay, this is the problem here, but I pray, I discern. Okay, I ask for God's wisdom to do the right thing, and by doing so, he succeeds. That is the way forward for men. Not Bishop Barron's money, power, pleasure, honor is bad. That message is not only outdated, it's misguided, and men need to wake up. All right, guys, I'm the Christian Humanist. I hope you like it. See you guys next time.